everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. I hope that you guys are having a good day, and I hope that you had a nice weekend. Thank you for joining us again for another episode. Today, what I wanted to talk to you about tonight, so we have Father's Day coming up in a couple of days, and one of my father's favorite items that we have in the store is our fossil ammonites. Those are kind of like his favorite thing, right, Mike? Every time we go shopping, he's like obsessed with the ammonites.
And trilobites.
Ammonites and trilobites. Those are his favorite things.
Is his favorite, most particular?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
He's very particular about his ammonites. So in thinking about him tonight, I thought it would be good for us to talk about ammonites. So in the past 10 episodes, this is episode 11. So in the past 10 episodes, we've kind of jumped around from thing to thing and haven't sort of come up with too much of a cohesive theme. But we're thinking maybe for the next few episodes, we're going to try and do a theme for each episode. And so for this episode, we're going to be talking about ammonites. We're going to be showing you 3 different types of ammonites this evening. And so you can kind of compare and contrast the differences. We have different sizes, different shapes, different textures. And I think that's why my dad and so many other people love ammonites so much, is because there's such a huge variety, both in size and shape. I was just talking to my dad earlier today, and he was telling me that some ammonites can get, 6, 9, 10 feet big. We've seen some at the show that are just
maybe not 9 feet. What?
Maybe not 9 feet, but 6 feet. I think we've seen the big Ammonites. Those can get really quite large.
Yeah, but I don't know if I've seen 6 feet. 6 feet would be taller than me. I've seen them like 4 or 5 feet, 4 feet.
Yeah.
A good 4 feet.
My dad told me that years and years ago he had one that was 4 feet long.
That's pretty big.
That's pretty big. We don't have anything quite that large to show you this evening. That would be a little bit difficult to manage. They're mostly...
In the store we have some. There are, I think the biggest one we have currently, maybe it's 1 feet, 1.5, something like that.
Yeah, definitely over 12 inches, sort of a larger
maybe
piece.
18 inches, something like that.
Yeah, so if you have a chance to come down to the store after we're open, obviously in phase 2 of reopening, we can show you some of the larger pieces. But today we brought a few of the smaller ones for you, and you can still get a really good sense of the, to compare and contrast some of the different kinds that we have. So for those who are not familiar, ammonites are a type of fossil, and they were a creature that, has been extinct for millions and millions of years, but anatomically, they look very much like nautiluses. So if you've ever seen a nautilus shell, it has that sort of swirly, very beautiful shell pattern. And so that's kind of what a nautilus looks like. So it was an animal that lived inside of a shell. And so even though it looks more like a nautilus, a modern day nautilus, it's actually more closely related to an octopus. And so the reason for that is, so they had the shell, of course, and then outside of the shell, they had these like little tentacles, and like that's where like their mouth was or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what the anatomy of it was, but imagine like a big shell with sort of like these little like tentacles shooting out of it. So that's what they looked like anatomically. And one of the reasons why ammonites are so important for paleontologists in the study of, geologic timescales and stuff like that is that they're used as what they call index fossils. And so what they do is they use the fossils to show sort of the strata, the rock layer that they're in, and they use that to correlate to the geologic timescale of other creatures that lived during that time. So they use them as a way of indicating the geologic timescale based on where they find the fossils, find the ammonites. So that's really a very important reason why ammonites are so well studied, is because they're used as these index fossils. And so the name ammonite comes from, it means the horns of Ammon. So think of kind of like a ram's horn. And so Ammon was an Egyptian god who had ram's horns. And so that's how they got their name, because that shape very much resembles a horn.
When I was uploading one of these little guys to the web, the one that has spikes on them, the ridged ones, one of the common names for it is horned ammonite.
Yeah.
Goat horn ammonite.
Goat horn ammonite. Yeah. So ram's horns, goat horns, they've always sort of been related to horns and stuff like that. So that's why they have their names of ammonite. And the person who named them, actually, they have documentation of who first gave these fossils their name, and it was actually Pliny the Elder in the year 79 AD. So these fossils have been, people have known about these fossils for a very, very long time. And Pliny the Elder was actually one of the first naturalists, and he's sometimes credited with being the person who wrote the first encyclopedia. So he was very much into categorizing nature and describing things, and so he named a number of different discoveries, and one of them was the ammonite. He gave it their name of the sort of horns of Ammon. So that was it's a little bit of a background on ammonites. And so the first item I'm going to show you today, like I said, we're going to do 3 different types so you can see, compare and contrast. So the first one I'm going to show you is this really beautiful ammonite plaque. So you can see it's very thin. I'm going to show you from the side. So you can see it's very thin, thinner than a slice of bread, not quite, thicker than a credit card. But you can see something in between that, right?
I love those are the things you have in your head for thickness.
Yeah.
Credit cards and slices of bread.
But this is one example that we have today of this beautiful, really beautiful fossil ammonite plaque. I'm going to give you a bit of a closer look. Hopefully the lens will focus. So you can see it has really amazing detail in this. And so if you can see closely, so there's the 2 large ones, obviously, that you can see. But if you look very closely, I'm trying to get a good angle, you can see there's actually many, many small impressions of them all throughout the plaque. So you really get a whole variety of different ones. There's a bunch of little tiny ones all sprinkled through there. So this ammonite is a Dactylioceras ammonite from Germany. It is 180 million years old, which puts it in the Jurassic period. So these ammonites would have coexisted with all of the big dinosaurs, and in fact, and in fact they went extinct along with the dinosaurs during that big extinction event. So but they coexisted with them, and this particular species of ammonite was quite widespread, the Dactylioceras ammonites. So they were quite they were sort of very well distributed all around the oceans. Some of the best preserved ammonites of this species are found in Germany, though, and I think also in the UK. So so those are kind of special. That's what this species is sort of known as, being highly collectible from those regions. So the name Dactylioceras, dactyl, right, like pterodactyl, means finger. And I was looking that up, and I was like, why is it called a finger ammonite? And the reason for that is because obviously the distinctive feature of the ammonites, right, because they all sort of look the same at first blush, right? There's all these different types, but they all look pretty similar, is the ridges that you can see along the edges of the ammonite. That is what sort of distinguishes, one of the ways in which we distinguish the different species. And this one has very straight ridges that shoot straight out. They don't, from the center, they don't sort of wobble or twirl in any way. And so I guess somebody thought that those looked like fingers. And so that's why they're called finger ammonites, Dactylioceras. So finger horns, I suppose, finger-shaped horns is what they were, I guess whoever discovered it called them that. And so what I think, so this is a little quiz time for you, Mike.
Okay.
So as I said,
I love quiz time.
So we only have, we sort of see here the 2 larger ammonites, but then also throughout this entire plaque, dotted along here are the impressions of many, many, many different ammonites. So this suggests that they all died at the same time. right? If they were all sort of buried in the same
Is
area
that a
at the
leading
same time. Well, so sometimes we have evidence of mass mortalities, right? And they're sort of indications of, you know, maybe an extinction event or something like that. But they don't believe that this species was, that all of these sort of ammonites were found together because of an extinction event. They think it's actually part of the normal life cycle.
Like cicadas? Isn't those things like they come every 7 years? No, what am I thinking of?
Yeah.
Am I thinking of cicadas?
Yeah. So different species, but yeah.
Yeah,
but
they like stay buried somewhere for like years, 6 years.
So it's similar.
And then come out.
It's similar to that. It's a little bit more like salmon, right? So salmon will swim back to where they were born in order to spawn, and then that becomes sort of the end of their life cycle, right?
Okay. All right.
And so they think that that's what happened with this particular species of ammonite, is that they would, you know, go back to the source or go to a specific area in order to spawn their eggs, and then they would immediately die. And that's why there were so many layers upon layers upon layers of these ammonites all sort of in the same area. So all of these ammonites had just finished their, you know, their reproductive function and then clocked out. So.
Well, I guess, you know, that reminds me of Futurama. Dr. Zoidberg, his species, whatever kind of alien he is, they do the same thing. I don't know. I guess maybe they got the idea from different kinds of sea creatures.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty common, you know, not an uncommon.
There's an episode where he has to go back to his home planet because he's going through Pomfar. Am I saying that right? From Star Trek? I think it's called Pomfar, when Vulcans get the urge to mate or something.
Yes.
So he has to go back, but if he does it, he dies, but he end up not getting anybody.
So the series could continue.
So the character could continue, yeah. But that reminds me of that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So
maybe we should rename them Zoidbergs.
Yeah, little Zoidberg ammonites. But yeah, it's just always so interesting to me, the things that people can sort of figure out on, you know, looking at current animal behavior, what we know about, you know, modern animals and how they act, and just sort of connecting the dots and making educated guesses based on fossil records. So I just always think that that's fascinating. So anyway, just to finish up with these fossils. So as I mentioned, each plaque has multiple specimens. So you can see the two, you know, usually you'll have one or two main ones that have this really beautiful golden sheen to them. And then the matrix itself, which is the you know, kind of the plaque, that what we call the plaque, is black. And then also you'll see all these many little impressions. They're almost like fingerprints all throughout. So they're very interesting to see. So I definitely recommend that you check those out. And I think that these also come with a stand, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah, so we when we ship these out to you, if you order them, they come with a little stand so that you can display them sort of standing up. We're not, because of the camera angle, we're sort of just laying them down today, but normally they would be standing up so that you could put them on a shelf and stuff. So that is the Dactylioceras ammonite plaque, which I should have mentioned at the top, but I will mention it now. All of the items that we are going to be showing you today are going to be having free shipping for the next week. And that free shipping is for U.S. customers only, with USPS shipping selected. So definitely check those out if you are interested. The next type of ammonite that I will be showing you today is these very cool ridged ammonites. We call them ridged ammonites because of these really significantly bumpy ridges. So you can see this is already so incredibly different from the other ammonite that I just showed you. Right, so this one, obviously it's more of a 3D piece. The other one was a plaque, a little bit more two-dimensional. This is a completely three-dimensional freestanding ammonite.
Those are the goat horns.
Yeah, these are the ones you were referring to earlier. Yeah. So you can see they definitely look like goat horns. They have those ridges. That's definitely, I think, a good name for them. These are really beautiful. They're very highly polished. They feel really nice in the hand, nice and heavy, very, very solid and shiny. And so the species name for these ammonites is Douvilleiceras species. They're from Madagascar. They're 100 million years old, which puts them in the Cretaceous period. So they're a little bit younger than the Dactylioceras ammonites, but I think that they also coexisted with dinosaurs, so they came a little bit later. But ammonites were an incredibly abundant life form back then. There were so many different species of ammonites and so much quantity too. Just goes to show you that it was a very successful sort of life form. They reproduced a lot. They were very, very widespread.
I heard that, if I'm not mistaken, one of the reasons that they went extinct is that the oxygen concentration on the water kind of diluted as the planet warmed up, if I'm not mistaken.
Or cooled down?
No, I think
when the sun was blocked out?
Yeah, when the sun was blocked out and stuff. I don't know, something like that. But I don't think that they died because of like an asteroid impact.
No, it wasn't probably directly because of the impact.
The chemistry
it was more
of the
indirect,
water,
yeah.
Caused them to go extinct, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be interested to learn more about that. Maybe I'll do some more research next time we talk about ammonites.
Also, often when you get these little guys, they will have their horns snapped, and ours don't.
Oh yeah, so we hand select these, so that they're the most complete that you can possibly find. A lot of these will have, they'll have chips broken off of either the edges.
There,
Yeah,
those things, they tend to snap, especially on the little ones.
Yeah, so these are really in good condition. They're complete all the way around. The ridges here, sometimes they can be scuffed off and chipped off, but these are all really intact. So they're very, very well preserved. And so, as I mentioned, this was a very successful species. They were found worldwide, which is actually pretty remarkable for that time, because during the Cretaceous period, it was a period of tremendous continental drift. So the continents really separated during that time. So it is pretty remarkable and interesting that you would have the same species in so many different places, because the world had suddenly become, quite a bit larger. Obviously, they were aquatic creatures, but I imagine that they probably stayed relatively close to land masses. I don't think that they were deep ocean creatures. And so they would have followed, I suppose, as the continents sort of drifted apart, they would have followed the shoreline more or less as that happened. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing to note about them. And so as Mike mentioned, these are sometimes called goat horn ammonites. The other name that I found for them when I was looking this up is tractor ammonites, because I guess that their ridged, shells look like tractor wheels. So you can kind of imagine that as well. So depending on what your preference is, you can call them goat horn ammonites, you can call them tractor ammonites, or you can just call them ridged ammonites as we do on our website, or you can use their scientific name of Douvilleiceras, which is quite lyrical.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what distinguishes these obviously from other ammonites, what really sets them apart is that really harsh, ridged exterior. And why do you think maybe, Mike, they would have evolved to have that kind of a shell as opposed to some of the other ammonites that we've seen, which have more of a smoother shell?
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other animals that you can think of that have ridges or spikes or horns or knobs?
I guess you're implying that it makes it harder for them to be eaten.
Yes.
I suppose. I thought
my quizzes are very leading.
Yes,
Maybe I should come up with like a multiple choice.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess I was gonna guess because of the shape of it, the structure of it makes it harder. You know, just because of how it's formed versus the other one, it might be easier to crack.
Yeah.
Versus like if an animal is eating it, if you're eating something that is flat on the outside, it might be easier to break versus something that is ridged on the outside. That's what I would think.
I think that has something to do with it. I think it was definitely a sort of a self-defense mechanism that they had developed to be just knobby and harsh. And I think that what scientists are sort of implying from that is that they really lived in very much more harsher environments than maybe some other ammonites. So these were really hardy, tough to kill, really tough ammonites.
Like Charles Bronson?
Yeah, Charles Bronson type. We've been watching the Death Wish series. I don't know if I recommend it. It's a little, we're still a little on the fence about it. But,
it was free on Amazon, so.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, these are like the badass of the Ammonite world. They're like the weightlifters, the Arnold Schwarzeneggers of Ammonites. So if that's your thing, I definitely recommend that you check them out. And then finally, just that these are actually quite rare. We often find that they're not available. So we grab as many as we can whenever we find them, but we aren't able to get them every year. So the stock that we have now, when it runs out, it runs out, and we won't be able to get more until maybe the next time we go on a buying trip, which could be 6 months from now. So these are not always available. They're pretty unusual.
I would add to that they are relatively easy to find. I wouldn't say that they are hard, but it's really hard to find ones that are not broken.
Right.
They will often be scuffed, like you mentioned. Their horns will be broken, chipped. But finding, or they will be mostly sediment. I don't know if you look at the center of one of them. Let me zoom in. There is that sediment, that gray.
Right
mass.
In the center.
Yeah, so often you find them where they're mostly made out of that versus they're really nice mineral. A fossil thing.
Yeah, so the actual fossilized shell.
Yeah.
Versus just the sedimentary impression of the shell.
Yeah, so to find them like this is really, really hard. So we like to grab as many as we can.
And we don't like to compromise on quality, so we always try and get the best kinds that we can get. And so we have them, as you can see, in 2 different sizes, small and large. So definitely check those out on our website. All right. And finally, this evening, the last Ammonite species that I have to show you is kind of the classic Ammonite, I would say, the evolution classic Ammonite. So these are the Ammonites that we carry, that we have carried, I would say, traditionally from the beginning. They're one of the more common types of Ammonites that you can find. But again, we mostly hand select all of our Ammonites, as we do many of our fossils, to try and make sure that we're getting ones that are really, really high quality. And we work with vendors who also, sort them, because there's so many different grades of Ammonites. Some can be quite damaged or, as Mike said, mostly sediment. So we try and get ones that are as intact and really collectible quality as possible.
If you look at that large one over there, you got a little bit of sediment in the center, but the rest of it is just this beautiful quartz inclusions all over the place.
Yeah, so you can see, so some of the chambers are filled in, and then some of the chambers you can see have these beautiful mineral deposits. Yeah, they're all mineral deposits, I should say, but this one's more of like a geode, like it's left open.
Yeah, I actually got a special one that I separated for myself behind you. It's on the shelf.
So
you see it?
A sample, right?
A sample, I would call them samples that we keep for reference. When we put them in our
But
this one
collection.
In particular, as I was looking through, I found one with mostly open chambers.
Yeah, so you can see the beautiful, really...
And it glitters.
Deposits, so it makes it really glitter. So they're really beautiful. They're classic. They're really standard. If you're going to be starting a natural history collection, you definitely have to have some Ammonites. And I would recommend starting with the Cleoniceras Ammonites, because they're sort of that classic Ammonite shape, and they're very, very beautiful. And like I said, we've pre-selected all of them so that they're really, really high quality. So these are, as I said, these are Cleoniceras species. All of these are Cleoniceras. We do have on our website also, sometimes we have Douvilleiceras, which is a slightly different species, looks very, very similar, but is different in a few key ways. So maybe Mike, you can tell us, I know that you like to distinguish between the different Ammonites when we are shopping for them. You can tell us what the differences are.
I had to learn to, because of Bill, because he's very particular. My thing is minerals and meteorites, but yeah. So the main difference between them is that the chambers on the Cleoniceras are wavy.
Yeah.
Right. They have this interesting waved chambers, where on the Desmotheras it would be they're straight.
They're kind of like arches,
They're
like an
arches,
archway.
Yeah, and also these are much flatter. They're much thinner. They're about half of the girth, I would say, of
yeah. So you can see how thin these are. I'm trying to get you a good shot of that. So again, you know, not to repeat myself, less than a slice of bread, but more than a credit card. So it is, they're really quite thin, especially when you compare. I can go back to, you know, the ridged Ammonites. Look how thick this one is compared to the size. Mm-hmm. You know, this is, you know, maybe comparable size to this one in terms of, you know, the surface area, but then look at the difference between the thinness and the thickness of these two. Much thinner. So it's just a different type. Those are some of the distinguishing characteristics. Yeah, so these have been
and the other ones are more rare too. The
Desmotheras?
Desmotheras,
yeah,
they're rare.
Yeah, the Cleoniceras with the wavy chambers are a little bit more common than the Desmotheras. They're often sold together though, because I think they're often found in similar places, and they're not, you know, they're not sort of considered more or less collectible, I think. But the Cleoniceras is a little bit more common.
But it's hard for us to find them, so we usually just offer them in the store.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Because they, you know.
So this is the medium one, just to give you a little bit of a closer look. And so these have been cut in half, as I mentioned. So again, that's a little different from the different other ammonites that we showed you this evening. So this is half of an ammonite. And the reason it's cut in half, obviously, is to show these beautiful chambers and all the mineral inclusions. And it's really what makes it really exceptional and beautiful. I can show you the back of it, which is also interesting in its own way. So this is what the outside of the shell would have looked like. It is, you can see there's some sediment in there. There's also some intact shell. So it's a little bit of a combo there. And then on the inside, you just have these beautiful chambers and the beautiful mineral deposits. And so as you can see, we have 3 different sizes, small, medium, and large. We actually just added one size today. We had just small and large, but now we have a medium size as well. And so you can definitely check those out on our website. And so that is the 3 items that I wanted to show you today. Let me see if I can bring them out again. Let me see if I can make enough room on the camera for them so that you can get a nice little comparison shot of the 3 different types. So we have the fossil ammonite plaque here, right? So these are ammonites sort of in matrix. We have the ridged ammonites, which are a whole, complete ammonite. And then we have the Cleoniceras ammonites, which are cut in half to show the inside chambers. So yeah, so we thought that was a nice selection to show you guys a little bit of a sort of variation of the 3 different types. I wanted to close this week with, ooh, where did my card go?
Oh, sorry, I was using a card
notes.
to read
my notes. I wanted to just read very quickly.
Focus my camera. I'm sorry.
one of the comments that someone left last time on the last video, because I think it's so great that you guys are engaged and are talking with us, and so I wanted to sort of have a moment to address that. So this is from Lindsay Page on Facebook.
Oh, she actually commented. Did you see it?
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
Hi, Lindsay.
She said her boyfriend got a raccoon penis bone.
All right.
She's making a terrarium, it looks like.
Ooh, very cool. All right, go Lindsay. Good boyfriend. Good choice. So I will quote Lindsay from last week. She says, "I'm glad I can rewatch these if I miss them live. I love seeing."
It's a raccoon skull.
Oh, raccoon skull. Okay. Still cool. Still cool. You can add the penis bone later. It's, we sell them separate. All the bones individually. You can get them eventually.
The whole raccoon.
So, okay, so she says, last week she said, "I'm glad I can rewatch these if I miss them live. I love seeing what interesting finds are featured this week." So thank you, Lindsay. Thank you for tuning in today, and thank you for tuning in last week and leaving that comment. And I wanted to bring that up as a reminder to everybody who might be joining us today. If you don't catch us live, obviously you can watch the replay on Facebook Live, but on Facebook rather. But I also wanted to point out that we have a YouTube channel for those of you who may not be aware of that. So you can go on YouTube, you can search us. We're just The Evolution Store on YouTube. So definitely like our videos there, subscribe, and you can get notified whenever new videos are uploaded. Right now we've been posting these episodes, these Facebook Live videos, but then we also post close-up shots of different products that we have. And over the next couple of weeks, as we work more in the store, getting ready for our phase 2 of reopening, fingers crossed, hope that goes well. We are going to be spending more and more time in the store getting things ready, and we have been talking today about different types of little mini episodes and stuff that we may be doing on that. So definitely like and subscribe to our page on YouTube, and you can see all of the videos whenever you want. And so on that note, I did want to, a little programming note, we are going to be skipping next week because we are going to be focusing on the store and reopening, and so we're not going to necessarily have time to do a full episode next week. We'll be keeping everybody updated on social media for how things are going. We don't yet have a date for when New York City is going to be entering phase 2 of reopening. Hopefully that will be announced very soon. It makes us a little anxious not to know exactly when things are going to be happening, but obviously everyone is sort of figuring things out as they go along. So we'll keep you posted on that. We are going to skip next week's episode though, so just be aware of that. We'll try and check in with you again the following week in one way or another. In the meantime, while we're getting ready for our phase 2 of reopening, we are open for curbside pickup. So please do call us if there's anything that at all that you're interested in the store. We are asking people to make an appointment, but then we are more than happy to meet you and have your item ready for you and all wrapped up and ready to go. So definitely give us a call. Our phone number is 212-343-1114. And if they do extension 200, does that go?
No, 201.
201. Extension 201, that'll go directly to our store sales associates. Or you can email us at info@theevolutionstore.com. And again, we'd be more than happy to make arrangements for curbside pickup. And I will post that phone number and that email address in the description of the video in case you didn't have a chance to write that down. Okay, well, thanks again for joining us this evening, and thanks for all the comments and all the interaction, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, bye!